This is Russell's Reserve 13-year batch 6, the 2025 release along the Russell's 13 series. It is the highest proof Russell's Reserve we have ever seen, and it's making a comeback after a one-year hiatus. Now, can batch 6 of Russell's 13 live up to the hype and the reputation of last year's 15-year-old release? Let's find out. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Brandon Spinner. You've stormed yourself into the one YouTube channel where it is always whiskey weather. I am the Whiskey Weatherman, and if you love bourbon and whiskey reviews, make sure to hit that subscribe button below as we are inching closer and closer to our goal of 15,000 subscribers by the Kentucky Bourbon Fest this year, which is in September. Before we jump into the review, let me know, what is your favorite Wild Turkey product? What is your favorite Wild Turkey release of all time? Drop that in the comments, and let's jump right into the review. As I mentioned in the intro, this is Russell's Reserve 13-year batch 6, a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey coming from the fine folks over at Wild Turkey Distillery in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. The original part of the series started in 2021 with batch 1, and since then we've had 4 other batches spread across 2022 and 2023. However, in 2024, there was no release. Instead, Wild Turkey gave us Russell's Reserve 15-year, another limited release, which I reviewed on the channel right up there on the top right of your screen. And spoiler alert, I rated it as my #1 whiskey of the year in 2024. And just like the previous releases, batch 6 is labeled as barrel proof, and it clocks in with a whopping 123.8 proof, which not only makes it the highest proof Russell's Reserve release to date, it's also the highest ABV batched product that we've ever seen from Wild Turkey. Kind of crazy. And as I mentioned, it clocks in at 13 years old. Mashbill on this is the classic Wild Turkey mash bill we've all grown to love. 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. Now, this year bottle does come with a slightly higher price tag, checking in with a suggested retail price of $200, which is slightly higher than the MSRP of batch 5 just 2 years ago, which clocked in at $150. Now, we'll talk about whether or not I think that this is worth that extra $50 a little bit later on. Before we jump in, I do want to give a big shout out to a Patreon member of mine, Andrew Poe, who was able to grab this at one of those limited release events last week and has been kind enough to allow me to review it and sample a pour here for the channel. Now, if you're new here, let's talk about how I'm going to rate and review this, because I don't wing things around here. I have my own 10-point custom rating scale, which I call the lightning counter. Here's how it works. I score each pour on 5 equal categories: the nose, the flavor, the mouthfeel, the finish, and the value, all worth 2 points each. And at the end of the day, we total it up to see not only where it stacks up against this year's whiskeys, but everything else that I've ever reviewed. There have already been some really great bottles here so far in 2025, but we're not only going to rate this and review it against those, we're going to see how it stacks up versus last year's Russell's Reserve 15 year. So let's see how it stacks up. First up, the nose. Right off the nose, you get that classic Russell's Reserve cherry. I get the cherry on everything they put out. This is just deeper and more just sweet on the nose to me. Those sweet oak notes are right there. Same with those caramels, but I get like a buttercream vanilla frosting. Super delicious. Yeah, it's just like a classic bourbon nose, a classic Wild Turkey. I'm gonna give that a 1.9 out of 2. I don't think it's nearly as deep as the 15-year, if I recall. But it is certainly way better than the Wild Turkey 8-year, which I reviewed on the channel earlier this year. So 1.9 on the nose. Let's see how it tastes. Well, that's very good. Flavors are still deep, dark. I get a lot of oak right up front. That vanilla buttercream frosting, and even has that buttery mouthfeel to it as well. I don't think it's necessarily as sweet as I got on the nose, and it does tail off a little bit quicker than I would have hoped, at least on the first 2 sips. It's still talking to me on the back end. As far as the flavor, super buttery. Flavor, I give that a 1.8, 1.7 as well. I do wish that there was a little bit more of that cherry and oak up front. The vanillas are certainly there. The nose definitely matches the palate. I think the nose is slightly better. The mouthfeel is fantastic. super creamy, buttery. It's got a little bit of an astringent tannic dryness towards the back end, but that really is at the back end of the pour. It coats the mouth great. I'm gonna go the 1.8 on the mouthfeel as well. So we're already at a 5.4 out of 6. Now, for perspective, the Russell's 15-year did score, I believe, a 9.4 last year. So that has some big legs to stand up to, but speaking of legs, not quite as sticky to the Glen as I would have expected it to be, but still not bad. Mouthfeels. Yeah, I'm going with a 1.9. I'm going to change that, which sometimes I tend to do. You got to revisit it. Finish is not nearly as strong as I would have hoped. I don't get those cinnamons or those leathers that I would normally get on some bourbons that kind of turn me off when it comes to the finish. I think it's very good. It's got a sweet oak and vanilla component. There is a hint of that cinnamon. I think there's more of that white pepper we should get from the rye on the palate towards the finish. My tongue still has like a tingle to it. Makes me want to go back to it. The finish is pretty good as well. I'm going with a 1.7. So 5.5 to 1.7, that already puts us at a 7.2. Now we get to the value. Value is always something that I think is subjective. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Some might think that $200 is good. If you have the money, you have the money. But for the average person out there, $200 is a lot of money to spend on a bourbon. And that is the MSRP. As for the secondary market, I'm sure these bottles will be out there for $400, $500, maybe even $600. That's where the Russell's 15-year was last year. And if you're a collector of all the batches, you're definitely going to want this one. The value on this, to me, I think at $200, I wish it was closer to the 2023 release out there, which was $150. Last year's 15-year was at $250. So when we're looking at I like to go with a 10-year, $10 per year statement. So that to me would mean $130, which is what I believe batches 2, 3, and 4 listed at. I wish it was closer to that $200. That's where you kind of lose me. I definitely would be buying this if I found it at $200. Don't get me wrong. But that's about as high as I'd go. Maybe $250 if I was desperate. So the value at $200, I'm going to put at a 1.5 because I don't think that it's necessarily that great for $200. $170, way different. $180, I'd be a little bit more okay with. $200 just to me, it's really tough to spend $200 on a bottle of bourbon or a bottle of whiskey some days. Damn, this is good though. So altogether, that gives that a total rating score when you add that all up. If my math is correct, sometimes it not always is, 8.7 out of 10, which is a damn good whiskey. That is close to excellent. I would say that that's very close to excellent, but I do think it falls slightly short of the 2015 release, which I do have right here behind me, and I do want to not blind them together, but I want to take a look at them side by side just to see what we're looking at. Again, the 15-year, slightly darker. You would expect that when it comes to 2 extra years of age, but batch 6, yeah, the 15-year is just deeper on the nose. I believe that was the highest scored nose I gave last year at 2. Absolutely delicious. Cherries. The same nose, just deeper and darker and a little bit more, and just a lot more depth to it. Batch 6 is still really good, especially leans more towards the caramels. I think 15 leans more towards the cherries. They're both great, and they're both very great. The 15-year just, that nose kind of makes and dwarfs the 13-year quite a bit. As for the 15-year on the palate, just a whole lot more complexity on the palate. Even more of like a grapiness to it. This leans more vanilla comparative to the 2. Very good. I think I'd still prefer the 15-year slightly. At $250 though, and at $200, maybe I'd buy this if I saw them both on the shelf. But I'd probably try to grab both if I found them. However, Very, very good. As I mentioned, 8.7 for the final rating scale score on the 13-year. Where that stacks up, that is in the top 5 so far of 2025. It doesn't meet last year's magic of the 15-year, but it is certainly a very bold release this year. It is the best thing they've put out so far this year. They had a great year in 2024. I think they're following it up here in 2025, but just maybe not quite as strong with last year's 15-year release. Now, this is a limited release. Should be dropping across the entire United States nationwide here later on this summer. They're saying that they're going to do another online release like they did last year. Hopefully, it's a little bit less chaotic than it went for this 15-year. And again, I want to give a big shout out to my Patreon member and friend, Andrew Poe, who allowed me to sample this here for the Whiskey Weather YouTube channel. If you do want to become part of the Whiskey Weather Storm Chaser crew, along with all my other Patreon and YouTube members, make sure you check out the link in the description below. They get first access to all of my barrel picks, as well as some behind the scenes content and videos, especially this one, which they got to see before anybody else. I do have some amazing members out there, and if you want to join the crew, make sure you do that. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to smash that like button below, subscribe to the channel, but if you are already subscribed, the best way to support this channel, share this video with one of your bourbon and whiskey loving friends to help spread the Whiskey Weather Storm Chaser network. As far as this video, hope you enjoyed this. If you want more and want to learn more about what my thoughts were on the Russell's 15-year, you can check that up there on the top right of your screen in my full review. I end this the same way I end every other video. Please remember to drink safe and be responsible. And remember, it is always Whiskey Weather. I'll see you in that Russell's Reserve 15-year review. Cheers, y'all.